G'day, mate.
How you going, Zach? All right?
Yeah, no, I'm good. Good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Still trying to pretend it's summer in Tassie.
All right, okay. Yeah, well, it's pretty wet here on the mid-north coast of New South Wales at the moment.
Yeah, it's not been much fun for you lot.
Nah, not at all. It's we're praising when the sun comes out, the mythical sun.
Yeah. Now you know why they worship the sun in the old days.
Yeah. Well, I still worship the sun, being a surfer and an avid beach person. So
No, that's fair enough, mate.
I'm one of those modern pagans, I'm sure.
Well, I'm a gardener, so I'm in the same boat. No
Yep.
sun, no vegetables.
Come here and knowing that.
So, you grew up in Victoria, did you?
Yeah, well, I grew up in Wonthaggi.
Ah, okay.
Wonthaggi and Inverloch's the next sort of coastal town along.
Yeah, been there.
Spent most of my life in that area.
Yep.
Left there sort of mid-20s.
Okay.
Went up north and the weather was too good, so I didn't leave. You know?
Yeah, the mid-coast of New South Wales is pretty special.
Oh, it's beautiful. I've just moved here. Actually, I was up a bit further north, just under the border around Pottsville, Byron Bay area. I was around there for like 8 years.
Oh, yeah.
9 years, so.
And
Yeah, gorgeous up here. I love it.
how old were you when you had your sighting?
It was 2010, so 12 years ago, so 24 roughly.
Okay, so not that long ago.
No, it wasn't that long ago. We'd sort of always, the funny thing is, we'd always, there'd be stories around town about this wanting monster, and I always, I was into sort of, cryptozoology stuff since I was a kid, but I never really looked into it for some funny reason. But as I said to you earlier in that message, I was chatting to a really interesting fella over in Foster, near Wilson's Promontory there.
Right.
And I was over there to see his missus was doing Chinese medicine on me.
Right.
And he was an older fella anyway. He'd been around for a while, and we got onto the subject somehow about Thylacine and Wilson's Prom and Tassie Devil and stuff. And so he told me an amazing story about this woman that was a school teacher in Foster that I don't know if you've got her story. I'd say you would, but because I'm pretty sure it would have been in the newspapers and stuff. But apparently she was driving on a road out of Yannicky back to Foster one sort of late afternoon when the sun was going down, and she's turned a corner, and then right there was a Thylacine, well, perceivably the mother with a couple of pups, and she saw it, and then her mind didn't collect what she'd seen. Drove a little bit further and went, shit, what have I just seen? She just did a U-E and went back. And then when she went back, she saw him, and just for another five or so seconds, and then they went off in the bush. But she was absolutely adamant. But this bloke was like, he knew the woman, she was like a lifelong teacher in Foster, and
Yep.
standing in the community and everything, so
Yep.
one of those reliable ones that really
Stood out.
Since I was a kid too, Jumbunna, I think, was a hot spot. We lived sort of close to there on a farm at one stage, and that's where Dad saw the panther.
Oh, yeah.
When I was a kid, because we lived behind an abattoirs at this place where Dad saw the panther.
Okay, so there was plenty of smell.
Yeah, and there was a tree line as well. There was like once you start thinking about it, there's tree lines in every paddock, of course, for enough shade, and there's often little creeks, little rivulets running through, so there'd be tree line.
Yep.
So if these animals wanted to move around,
That's their corridor.
They got these corridors, so that's where Dad had seen the panther when he was driving at night. But that's a pretty full-on story. But anyway, this story. Do you want me to start? Like, are you recording?
Yeah, mate, go for it. Yep, I hit record before I rang you.
All right, no worries. Yeah, so it was a hot summer's night, and I was with a mate of mine, Shannon Clark, and we were at home, and I was there with my dog, my older dog. I think he was about, he would have been 11 or 10 or 11 at the time, but he was still pretty fit. He just had this little pup. He just got a pup, so it was a real hot night, and we'd just been having a jam, playing some music, and they just put these wind farms out the back of Wonthaggi.
Yep.
So we thought, well, bugger it, we'll go for a walk out. It's only a couple of K really from my place. It was like 3 or 4 Ks out. So we started off and trundled out there for something to do. And I remember it was a full moon. I remember it was really warm. It was a summer's night. And we get out through like the main paddock. The beach where it was at is called Baxter's Beach.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much, if you drive out the back of Wonthaggi, it's like a straight line down this road. I can't remember the name of the road.
All the way to the dunes.
Yeah, pretty much it goes all the way. You just got to go through one or two gates. But anyway, we were off the road. We'd gone the back way in the other road, and then we were walking through the paddock. So anyway, we're going through this big paddock and, just checking out these wind farms. And we got out the other side, like close to where the wind farms were, and you had to go through the fence to get on the wind farm side and where there's coastal heath before the dunes. And we got in there and we're just having a sort of a wander around. And I remember the smell. There was something freshly killed. And I know that like an old animal killed, and this was fresh. You could smell the blood.
Yeah.
Like that warm blood smell.
Yep.
Strong. And I remember thinking, oh, yeah, well, Fox has just got something. I remember saying that to Shaz, and yeah, something just, freshly killed. Anyway, we tried to walk a little bit further and then sort of around these bushes and so just had a look, just wandering around out there, really. And then we did a U, we went back the same way. And as we came out where the smell was again, and meanwhile my dog's walking around, he's hopeless. Because I thought about it later, I thought, what good dog you are with all this stuff going on, and he was just oblivious in his own world. So I had the fence on my left-hand side, and I had the beach on the right-hand side, the fence into the paddock, and I was leading myself with the phone torch that couldn't have been going further than a metre and a half radius. And something caught my eye. I can't remember if it was something caught my eye or a sound. It was either either, but it got my attention, and I looked into the paddock, and it was just on the other side of the fence, maybe like a metre or a metre and a half inside the paddock. So for me, it was probably 3 metres.
So very close.
Very close, 3 or 4 metres, 4 metres at the most, I reckon. But the thing about it was, Neil, it was at least another metre and a half, 2 metres outside the torch light. But there was enough moonlight for me to get the shape of this animal. And as soon as I seen it, what I knew I was looking at was it had its backside to me, and it was looking back over its shoulder at me. It was looking back over its left shoulder, so it had its backside facing towards us, and it was looking over its shoulder back. And it was still at this point. And I remember, of course, I've been on farms my whole life. Been in the bush, I know what the animals look like even in the dark, shape-wise. So my brain's going ding, 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 trying to figure out what this animal is from the shape. And as soon as I realised that this is something else, it was the size of the only thing my brain could come up with was like a lioness. But even when I say lioness, it's not the same. It had a really wide head, and its body tapered off to like a skinnier point.
Right.
So I get from the backside upwards. It was going wider as it went up.
So the shoulders were a lot wider than the hips.
Oh, well and truly, that was the taper. Because, I sort of, when you see a lioness and their head's a lot bigger than the body,
Yeah.
That's all my brain could come up with, because you don't have anything to compare it to. You've got no relative point of reference, do you know what I mean? And especially all I'm seeing is the shape. And I remember I was... As I'm trying to come to and realising that I don't know what the fuck this thing is, I've turned to Shaz, and as I'm speaking, I said something like, "Are you seeing this?" or something like, "Shaz, are you seeing this?" And as I turned, he just turned, and I like to get his attention. I turned around again, and as I did, it just turned its head and went poof. In one single movement, there was one bit of bushes in the whole paddock, and that was probably another 4 metres away from this animal. And it turned its head, and in one single bound, it was into the grass, long enough grass, and it was silent the whole time, because it was a really still night. It was one of those sort of summer nights when it's real still, really warm, and you could hear a pin drop out there. Basically, you can hear everything. And it just turned its head, and I didn't even hear the grass move, to be honest. It was fully silent.
Yeah.
I knew that must have been where it was going, was those bushes.
Yep.
And at that point, that was when everything, sort of kicks in. You kick into reality, and you're like, holy shit, like, what have we just seen? And then the vibe of this thing was just, I just remember feeling this vibe of, like, I don't know what this is, but it's powerful and it's not really that scared of us, you know? It just was this vibe of, like, it's, you know, time to leave, basically. And, so we, you know, of course we were discussing it the whole way back, and it was pretty full on.
So did your mate actually get an eye on it, or it was gone before he did?
He saw it, but
Sorry, mate, you're breaking up.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now. Yep.
Yeah. He got a.
Nah, you're dropping out again.
Hang on. Sorry. You got me again?
Yeah, you're still a bit sketchy, but try it.
Sorry, mate. It's just a reset. Anyway, so yeah, from what he says, well, he would always say, was that he just saw the back end of it, and what his mind said, it was as big as, like, it was bigger than a big calf, you know?
Yeah.
And then he was just because we spoke about it, and he was just wigged out. He was just, you know, wigged out about the fact that the thing was so silent, and you know, so it was obviously a soft padded footed animal.
Yeah.
Soft padded footed animal. Like, 'cause I work in dingo conservation, and I've seen these animals move through the bush and seen them move in silence, and it's incredible to watch, you know.
Yep.
It was similar like that. It was just like this thing, but for the sheer size of it, to not make any sound from a bound.
Yeah.
To its landing, and
it's a stealth hunter.
Well, everything about it was just like, you know, and of course it takes like, you know, minutes afterwards, Neil, until you really, like, you fully come into terms with what you've just seen, because it's too much for your brain to comprehend, because it's just you don't have any point of reference. You know? Yeah,
it doesn't fit the mould of anything.
Doesn't fit the mould. So I knew straight away that, sort of, as soon as, well, not even know straight away, but as soon as my brain I didn't have any point of reference, that was when I was like, well, this is different. And of course afterwards, you know, our hair's standing up, and it was just like this, the vibe off the area was just like, yeah, this is something else, you know, this isn't a fox, this isn't definitely not a dog. You know, it was big, it was a really big, powerful thing.
Yeah. At what point did you learn about Thyalcoleo after that?
I think it was a while after, and I can't even. Yeah, I looked into it afterwards, and I think I started to look into this Wonthaggi monster thing, and then the dots got connected a while after. But it was like it was almost like one of those things too, I guess, that it wasn't so much that I didn't want to tell anyone about it. I mean, of course, we would have been telling everyone that we knew about it, but it was just, it happened quick enough, and it happened like that ambiguously enough, like it sort of outside of our point of reference, that you just like, oh, well, you know, that was...
It goes into the mystery basket.
Yeah, into the mystery basket, mate, so... It wasn't until like I couldn't say, I can't go back that far. I don't know when I really connected it to that animal, but
yeah,
that was the only thing then that made sense.
Yep. The whole Wonthaggi monster thing has got reports of big cat type animals, plus it's got typical Thylacine type sightings as well. So there's a bit of cross pollination between animals that have fitted the bill of being the Wonthaggi monster as a result.
Yeah.
So, and that's not to say that the witnesses aren't credible or anything, or they're confused about what they saw. It's just that there's more than one large, scary thing out there.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's
we had an interesting point that you made about the noise or lack thereof. We had a sighting reported last year, I think, from south of Sydney on the edge of Royal National Park.
Yeah.
And a guy saw one in his backyard. It tried to kill his cat that was in a cat enclosure.
Right.
And it took off. It bounced off the shed and on the fence, looked at him when it was on the fence, and then jumped over the fence. I don't think it was as big as the one that you saw, but he definitely said it was a Thyalcoleo. It was nothing else. Didn't make a noise. Even jumping on the shed roof, all of that, didn't make a noise. It was silent.
That's the thing about these animals that because Dad said when Dad saw the panther and he saw it really clear as day, and when he was driving his car one night, it pulled in right in front of the headlights, and then it sort of looked at him and then went in the maze. There was a maze plantation, and it went in there.
Yep.
And he said it was silent, but he was seeing the maze move.
Yep.
And then he saw the maze move to a certain point and then stop, and then he could feel like the animal turned around and was looking back at him, like,
yeah,
you want to come in here, good luck, you know. And Dad said he just like got this wave of
don't
okay, blah, blah, blah.
you win.
Fascination only takes you so far in that situation.
Yeah, unless you've got an AK-47 on your hip, it's not a real confident moment, is it?
Yeah, that's it. So, look, I'll leave that with you, and Shaz is happy to have a chat with you as well and give his side of the story.
Yeah, that'd be great. I don't normally get that. So, yeah, if you want to get him to get in touch or just flick me his number and let me know when's a good time to ring him, that'd be awesome.
No worries, mate. Well, yeah, it's another piece of the puzzle, hopefully.
Yeah, it is. And look, I don't doubt your experience for a second, because there are, I'm mainly interested in thylacines, but Thyalcoleo sightings keep popping up, so I can't ignore it. It's another piece of the puzzle, like you said. So, a lot.
There's a reason why they call it cryptid, and there's cryptic stuff. So it's like it's just outside our point of reference in our sort of.
Yeah, from the amount of light that you had available to you, but you obviously got a good shape on it. Look, my second sighting of a thylacine was under a full moon, so I know exactly the sort of light you're talking about. Shapes are actually very defined and under that sort of lighting, if you've got no other light pollution.
No, it was all shape, because there was, I wasn't quite enough to get features. That was the thing. It was just out of my torchlight enough, and then just not enough moonlight
to see it for colour and spots and stripes and all that stuff. Yeah. Do you think in hindsight that the smell was actually it and not a dead kill?
No, definitely something just killed.
Okay, so it was feeding and you disturbed it.
And you see, I used to find things just being killed by foxes or whatever, so I know what that smells like.
Yep.
That warm blood just being killed smell. So yeah, that was my theory, and I didn't mention that obviously logic deduces that we disturbed it with its kill.
Sure.
And then I don't know if we'd probably just walked past it, and then it probably cracked the shits and went, all right, well, I'm on this side of the fence now, and I'm going to go this way because you're on the other side.
Yeah, and it was so close, and you didn't even hear it.
No, actually, that just sparked a memory, because I do remember having a feeling that it was, and this might sound weird, but I had a feeling that I had an awareness that there was a fence between us, so it knew it was safe to be that far away from us and stop and look back.
Okay. Because
there was an awareness. Well, there was an awareness the whole time, really. That was sort of like above ours. It felt like,
Yeah.
Sort of like you're outmatched by this thing in all ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, mate. Well, look, thanks very much for that, and let me know how you go with your mate, and I'll record his, and then I'll edit the two together. It'll be good.
Too easy, mate.
All right, good on you.
Take care, mate.
Cheers. Thanks very much.
We're in it.
Bye-bye.
Hello, Shannon speaking.
Shannon, how are you? Neil Waters.
Hey, how you going, mate?
Yeah, good. I just spoke to your buddy over there in New South Wales, and he said you might want to have a chat too.
Oh, right. Yeah, of course. Sorry, mate. I didn't realise.
No, that's all good. I won't hold you up too long, mate. But if you could give me a bit of your version of events of what you saw. I don't often get to speak to two people about the same sighting, so.
Yeah. Well, it's fair. I mean, there's a lot of years and probably a lot of damaged brain cells between now and then.
Oh, we're all guilty of that, mate. That's all right.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. Yeah. So, well, where do I start? So we were at Zac's house.
Yep.
And we'd sort of been sitting around having a few beers, a couple of wines, and it was sort of getting late, but we weren't tired or going anywhere anytime soon, and so we thought we'd sort of head for a walk with the dogs.
Yep.
He had a big dog called Taj, and I had a little brand new pup called Jumby. And anyway, so we decided they'd sort of just built a new wind farm in Wonthaggi.
Yep.
We hadn't been to check out yet, so we thought, might as well do that. So we did. We went for a big walk across town to the wind farm. And it's sort of out the back of Wonthaggi.
I've actually been to that wind farm. I know where you mean.
Oh, you know what it's about, yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, we're walking through the paddocks. It was probably, I don't know, it would have been about 11, 12 at night, I suppose. Pretty late anyway. No one was around. Went for a walk through the paddocks, had to jump a couple of fences. And by this time, because my dog was only a pup, I'd sort of had him up off the ground and in a bag. And Zac's Rottweiler, who's usually a bit of a scout, was sort of just scouting ahead in front of us. And we were just chatting shit, as you do. And then we sort of noticed this really weird smell, which was the first thing that we noticed, was this really weird smell, like I can only describe it as like something's dead. And I grew up on a farm, so I sort of, I've spent my life as a kid wandering through paddocks and stuff, and that smell of something dead.
Sure.
And anyway, we were walking along for a bit. The weird thing that I noticed, though, was Taj sort of, Zac's dog sort of, usually way off in front, and sort of come back and just was hanging really close by us, which was strange for me. He's usually just off, and you don't even see him really. He's always way out in front.
Yep.
He was sort of hanging around real close to us, which I was sort of a bit weary already, because there was the smell of death in the air, and then I was sort of just on a bit of alert.
Sure.
And Zac had his bloody mobile phone with a light on it, so he sort of turned it on, and we started sort of following our noses, wondering what it is. And Zac was looking around with his phone, and he was a couple of metres away from me, and he was the first one to see what I assumed was this animal you're talking about. I didn't see it straight away. I think he sort of saw it with his phone and sort of started to calculate what it was, I suppose. But then he yelled out to me and said, "Hey, Shan, what's this?" I can't remember his exact words. He sort of called my attention over, and I've looked, and I've just sort of seen this big, dark figure sort of off into like the long grass without, and my head straight away started computing it. So when I say large, I mean a bit bigger than a calf, like a small calf. It was like a quite a large calf is how I could say it.
Yep.
So my head started to compute what it might be, and I'm like, a calf, it couldn't have been a big dog, because it's bigger than any dog I've ever seen, even a big Great Dane or anything like that. It was bigger than that.
Well, you've got a Rottweiler with you. They're not a small dog.
No, that's right. He would have been at least twice the size of Taj.
Yeah, right.
It was massive. And so I'm thinking, I straight away started thinking hooved animals, but then there was no sound. And anyone and this was only, I don't know, it must have been, 5 metres away from us, I suppose, where he first saw it, maybe a little bit more, I suppose.
Yep.
And anything that would have ran off with hooves would have made a noise.
Sure.
Would have made a sound, trots, But there was no sound, which was the weirdest part, and that's what freaked me out the most. I was just like, oh shit, well, that's got me beat, because anything else has to be a dog or a cat. And my brain was sort of well, we'd sort of heard about, like the South Gippsland panther and things like that.
And the Wonthaggi monster and all those other...
Yeah. Well, I'd never heard of the Wonthaggi monster until recently, but I've heard about, they called it the South Gippsland panther.
Sure.
And I was like, yeah, well, panther, yeah, but even the panther, like, I mean, I've never seen a panther in real life other than the zoo, but even it seemed big for a panther, like it was huge, this thing. And I just couldn't compute in my head. So I just sort of freaked out and just said, right, let's go. And as we were walking back, we were just freaking out. There was a really, really big, heavy feeling just of, I need to get out of here.
Yeah.
I just couldn't explain what it was. It was the fear of the unknown.
Yep. And if you were on its menu.
And what happens if we're prey now?
Yeah, well, on average, about 7 campers and bushwalkers a year disappear in Victoria alone.
Yeah, right.
And I'm pretty well certain that these animals are involved in at least a couple of them every year.
Yeah, well, that, it makes sense. I live up in far north Queensland now, and, we have crocodile attacks and things like that. I'm pretty sure just about anyone that goes missing camping up here, you can just about put down to as a crocodile attack.
Sure.
Or something like that, But down there's nothing like that,
Well, there's Thyalcoleos in far north Queensland too, so don't rule that one out.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
Yeah, no. So, how was your emotions after that? Did you talk to many people about it and stuff, or?
Well, Zac and I sort of just, I don't think we even saw each other for a little while after that. Maybe, when I say a little while, we were thick as thieves back then, and when I say a little while, I mean maybe a week or two.
Yep.
To be honest, I hardly even thought about it, just sort of writing it off as God knows what it was. Like I said, we'd had a few drinks, and I was like, I put it down to mind games and all sorts of stuff, because I suppose the initial reaction was, shit, there's something dead up here, and then your sort of mind starts going, oh, well, something's dead. Something's got to have killed it, and if it can kill it, maybe it can kill me. And then you start playing mind games with yourself. So I sort of started putting it down to that. But then when we did get back together and we did actually finally talk about it, there's nothing that, in the mainstream, like no common animal.
Not even the Black Panther fits into it.
No.
Yeah, right.
There's nothing that it could have been.
Have you actually had a bit of a glance over images of Thylacoleos since then?
No. Today was the first time I've ever heard of it. So how do you spell it? I'm just in front of my computer right now.
It's Thyalcoleo.
Yep.
Lacleo. Thylacoleo. Carnifex with a C.
Oh, yeah, right.
So if you go into Google Images now while you're in front of the computer...
Yep.
Bring that up. There'll be a whole heap of artists' impressions of what they look like.
Yeah, I can see that now. Yeah, wow. So it's kind of like the, almost like the Tasmanian tiger a little bit, but much...
Well, these things are from a different order. They're related to wombats and koalas, oddly enough, and I believe this is the animal that is behind the original stories before the media bastardised them, basically, of the drop bears. These animals...
Pretty good at doing that.
Yeah, these animals...
Drop bears.
Yeah, well, this is the animal, because back in the 1800s, picnickers and people out in the bush, wood fellas, they come across a thing that was in a tree and jumped out the tree, had big teeth, big claws, snarled at him and scared the crap out of everyone.
Yep.
Sometimes they're plain in coat, Sometimes they're spotted, sometimes they got stripes, sometimes they're all black. These things come in many shapes and sizes and colours and fur patterns, you know. So, but yeah, the media over the years has turned it into a joke with the whole drop bear thing. But originally, it was based on genuine accounts of people being terrified.
Yeah, yep.
And there's a really good video on our Facebook group that I sort of knocked off of the telly. I kind of filmed it with my phone and nicked it. And it's a computer rendition. It's from a documentary called Australia: The Story of Us, and it's in the very first episode. And there's a Aboriginal family by a creek, and a young lad spears this Thyalcoleo because it comes into camp and tries to take his family, you know, and he kills it with a spear. But the computer generated image of it is fantastic. It's really quite good. But I don't know if you're on Facebook, but in our group on Facebook, if you go into the video, Thylacine Awareness Group of Australia.
Thylacine?
Yeah, Thylacine. Cine. Thylacine, actually. But, yeah, in the video section in there, I've actually put that video in there, and it's remarkably accurate, I think, for what these things look like. Big buffy head, narrow bum, broad stocky shoulders, and sort of sloping downwards when they run towards the bum.
Well, the big head is definitely the thing that stuck in Zac's mind. I remember him saying, because that's what when we were talking about, that he was just like, it had a massive head.
Yep.
And straight away, I just started thinking, well, you know, cats, because even dogs don't really, you know, wolves and things like that, you don't imagine, they're not really like a massive head thing. It's always a big cat trait, you know.
Yeah, and again, I'll bring up the Rottweiler's probably the buffiest head for the size of the dog kind of ratio that there is out there as far as dog breeds go.
Yeah, well, that's right.
Interesting. So, any of those drawings kind of familiar?
Look, like I said, I sort of only saw the back half of it as it charged away.
Sure. No, that's fair enough, but you definitely experienced it as well.
I'm just looking at the scale. So I've just typed in Thyalcoleo scale, and it's got it up against a man, and, you know, it's about a 1.8 metre tall person, and, you know, it's standing about halfway up, you know. So
it's a big beast. There's a video on our YouTube channel. I've put a photo in the video of the interview. You know, I throw a few photos in there as reference for the interview. And there's a skull there, a Thyalcoleo skull next to I think it's a mountain lion skull, and the mountain lion skull looks like a feral cat skull in comparison. It's tiny.
Yeah,
These things are a big, powerful animal. Very powerful, very big, very strong.
Yeah, wow.
So you've probably had a very lucky night that night.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it.
No, that's awesome, mate. I really appreciate you coming forward. Now, I've recorded this for the interview that I'm going to put out. You're okay with that?
Yeah, absolutely, mate.
All right, cool. No worries. Awesome. Excellent.
Awesome,
Well, look, if you want to join the group, by all means, just throw your application in there and I'll add you to the group and you can have a look at all the stuff that's in there. There's thousands of bloody photos and videos and stuff. Heaps.
Yeah, cool, mate.
There's a lot of
No
info
worries.
there. All right. Awesome. And
Awesome,
keep your eye out in the forest up there. There's a lot of these sightings up past Carbwell and all that area up through there. There's heaps of them.
Yeah, cool, mate. I will. I definitely will.
You're in the zone.
Awesome, mate. Well, I'll have to make sure I carry a big bloody knife around with
You'll
me.
need it.
If it'll do any good.
All right, mate. No worries. Thanks for your time.
All right, see you, mate. Have a good one.
Good on you, Shannon. Cheers.
See you, mate. Bye.
Bye-bye.